So Paul's just released the newest disc in his lineup, the Athena, and a lot of people have been saying that it's kind of like a slower Vulture or Reaper type disc, slower Onyx maybe, or an overstable Stalker. But if you throw discs other than Discraft, or if you've been following Paul for a while now, you know what this disc is. You've almost been expecting it for some time now. This is a Teebird. But how Teebird-like is the Athena, and why is it so important for Discraft's lineup? And why is Discraft so late to the party with this? It seems like they're one of the last companies to get a disc like this. Let's talk about it. So starting with the biggest difference from the Athena and the Teebird, and that's gonna be the feel. Now, with the Athena, when I first got them at Worlds, like I looked at it and I was like, yeah, this is exactly like my Teebird. This is a Teebird straight up. But it wasn't until I got home and I looked at my Teebirds that I noticed that the Athena is a little bit sharper on the edge. Now, the width of the rim feels very close, very similar. Like it feels slightly smaller on the Athena, but I think that is due to the wing here being sharper on the edge. Like you can just tell that it's a little bit more blunt on the Teebird than the Athena. It's just a more aggressive. But I would say it's between the Teebird and the Evader, because the Evader is even sharper on the edge, and that feels a lot smaller than both the Teebird and the Athena. Now, if you look at the bottom of the wing here, the Athena does have like the smallest of lips. Like it's almost like, at first I was thinking it might have been just flashing, that's how small it is, but I think it is a part of the design of the disc. It has a little bit of a lip on the bottom here. When the Teebird, it has a much more pronounced lip on the bottom of that wing, which is gonna make it have a little bit more stability and hook up at the end, when the Evader doesn't have any. And that reflects a lot in the flights of these discs. Now, the Teebird is gonna be most overstable, and from what I've found, I have a few Athenas, and these yellow ones were a lot more overstable than my blue ones. My blue ones held straight and it was closer to that Evader flight. I would still say that these blue ones were a little bit more, like a touch more overstable than my stock Evader, but these yellow ones hooked up more, it fought the winds more. You could even like forehand them on some short approaches, even with my forehand, so that's a good thing. But even these yellow ones, these weren't as overstable as my Teebird, which I don't think that's a bad thing. I like a Teebird that's a little bit more workable out of the box. Like this blue one is a lot more workable than all the other Athenas that I have, and who doesn't like a workable Teebird out of the box? It's just great. But it is nice that they got this overstable one. Now, I'm not too worried that this isn't as overstable as my Teebird, because I'm sure they're going to release like the big Z, or that would be crazy if they released this in TI, just to get a more overstable version of the Athena to kind of match that Teebird stability out of the box, which I'm sure they're going to do, because those would sell out like hotcakes, like these are selling out, because Paul's a madman. He can move discs with the best of them. Actually, he's the best at moving discs, I would say. But why is this so important in Discraft's lineup, and why do they take so long to add this? Because the Teebird's been around since like the 80s or 90s, I think it was the 90s. So when the Teebird came out, it was like one of the first stable, overstable discs that like still flew and was workable. And back then you had a lot of base plastic, so you had to beat them up, or they beat up throughout the round, and this Teebird had enough stability that even after it beat up, it was just more workable, and it still held a lot of great lines. So that's why the Teebird was so great then. Now, it's still a great disc, but especially for amateurs, where the Teebird shines the most is whenever you beat it in and you cycle them. Like I have this orange beat up Echo Star Teebird, and it's just a beauty. Like it just turns up, I throw it on my tunnel shots, I use it so much, and I still have yet to find a disc that flies similar to that out of the box. So these are some of the best discs that you can have for cycling and just like hitting fairways. Like I know an Onyx is similar. There's like, why don't you just have an Onyx or a Vulture or a Reaper? They're the same disc, they're just faster. Now the thing is, whenever you get tighter fairways, the faster a disc is, the more side to side, left to right movement there is. Even if it's an overstable one, it'll fly, but it'll finish harder to the left and have more tendency to skip. When the slower disc you have, the less it's gonna fade, the less it's gonna skip, the more straight of a finish you have, especially when you can crank on it, like a lot of these pros. That's why the pros love this disc so much. They can just crank on it and it's not gonna fade a whole lot for them if they throw it flat and straight. So you can hit and be very accurate on tight fairways with a disc like this, more so than an Onyx, Vulture, or Reaper type disc. All right, so my phone overheated, so I came over here to get out of the sun. Anyways, for beginners with this disc, like if you can't throw this disc over 300 feet to 325 feet, if you can't throw fairways that far, this is just gonna be an overstable disc for you. It's not a bad thing, you can still use it. It's just gonna be a stable, overstable wind fighter, reliable forehand disc, just you name it. But when you grow into it, and you can start throwing this over 300, 325, that's when you really start to see, like, it kind of hits you of like, oh, that is what this disc is supposed to do. This, I can see the hype now. Like I see a lot of people recommending Teebirds or Teebird-like discs for beginners. They're just gonna be overstable. Like, yes, you can grow into them. Yes, they're amazing discs, but like if you want an overstable disc, get this. If you're a beginner, yeah, sure. If you're wanting a disc that's more workable, you might want to look somewhere else. I don't know. But yeah, this is really interesting to me because I feel like Discraft has always been one of those companies that, like, they've been almost rivals with Innova. Like Innova would make a disc, have a staple, and sometimes Discraft tried to copy that staple, but they've really just found success going their own path. So like Innova made the Rock, then Discraft made the Wasp, didn't really work out, then they made the Buzz. So then it's different than the Rock, but it's right up there with the Rock in terms of popularity and how staple in your bag. Like Innova had the Destroyer, Discraft stuck with the Force. It's not the same, it's different, but they're both great discs. And then they had the Teebird, and Discraft kind of just stuck with their Undertaker. And the Undertaker is a great disc, don't get me wrong, but it's not a Teebird. There's nothing like it. It's just slow enough to where you can have that pinpoint accuracy on tight fairways, but it's fast enough that you can still get good distance off of the tee. Now, is there anything special about these ones? No, other than the fact that it has this 6-time world champion's name on it, which for the majority of people, that's enough. And this is a great disc for those people and Discraft fans that are wanting a Teebird type disc. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And Innova had nothing when Discraft had the Zone. that's probably the biggest one that they just and Innova's finally turned around and made a Zone of their own. It took them a while though, even though it took Discraft a while to make the Teebird. It's a good one though.